Theodore. He's a tugboat and a friendly tugboat too. A friendly tugboat too. Oh, Theodore likes to do the things that friendly tugboats do.
Hello. Would you look at this pile of paper that I have to read here? I'm gonna need my glasses for this. Oh, they're right here in my desk. Whoa! Oh, my goodness. Someone's playing a joke on me. Wait a minute. Of course. It must be Big Harbor Fool's Day. What's Big Harbor Fool's Day? See, once a year there's a special day when we all play jokes to make each other laugh. Well, most of us. Let me tell you what happened to George last time it was Big Harbor Fool's Day. Early one morning, the tugs were sound asleep at the Great Ocean Tug and Salvage Company dock when the town clock began to toll. Time to wake up, tugboats, it was chiming. We slept too long, shouted Theodore.
We're late for the morning work meeting, exclaimed Emily.
Late, grumbled Foduck. How could this happen? Quickly, the tugs gathered round the dispatcher's dock. Hank was so sleepy and startled, he bumped right into George. Oops! Hey, what's going on? Said George.
We're late for work, said Theodore.
I'm never late for work, groaned George. Oh, this is terrible. Big Harbor Fools, shouted the dispatcher. He was wearing silly pop-out glasses. You mean, said Foduck, we didn't sleep too long? I told the town clock to wake you up early, said the dispatcher, laughing merrily.
It's Big Harbor Fool's Day,
shouted Theodore excitedly. We almost forgot, smiled Emily. It's our favorite day of the year, hooted Hank. It's the dumbest day of the year, grumbled George as he puffed up some smoke from his smokestack, the way he did when he was upset. Then he turned back to his dock and didn't say another word. What's the matter with George? Whispered Hank. I don't know, answered Theodore. I really don't know. A little later, the tugs set off to their jobs for the day. Theodore, Hank, and George went to bring Shelburne, the sea barge, into the harbor. Shelburne had a big load of tanks, all filled with bubble bath. Theodore let out a small, sharp whistle, then hurried around behind Shelburne. Shelburne tried to see who was whistling at him, but he couldn't see anyone. Then Hank whistled from the other side and hurried behind Shelburne. Once again, Shelburne tried to see who was whistling. That's funny, he said. There's no one there. Well, Hank started laughing, and Theodore laughed too. Big Harbor Fools! They both shouted and tooted their whistles, and everyone had a good laugh. Let's get to work, frowned George. We're wasting time. Sorry, George, said Theodore. It was just a joke. For Big Harbor Fool's Day, added Hank. Can we get to work now? Repeated George. He scowled and buttoned onto Shelburne, blowing up some more smoke. Theodore, did we do something wrong? Said Hank. George just doesn't like today, said Theodore. But I don't know why. In another part of the harbor, Foduck was inspecting docks to see if they were safe. He started with Donald Dock. Everything ship-shape, Donald? Said Foduck. I mean, dock-shape. Uh-huh, said Donald. You see, uh-huh is all Donald ever says. Emily snuck up on Foduck, then hurried away with a smile as wide as a whale. Boduk didn't see the big sign Emily had put on his back. It said, "Honk at me, loud." Boduk hurried off to inspect the next dock. Philip and Fillmore, the fairy twins, honked loudly at it. Rebecca, the research vessel, blew her horn. "What's going on?" wondered Boduk. "Why is everybody honking at me?" And even Northumberland honked. Emily could hardly wait to see what would happen next. Boduk floated along inspecting docks, and everywhere he went, everyone honked and tooted and dinged at him. "I wonder," Boduk said to himself, "are my bumpers on backwards?" George, Theodore, and Hank were just bringing Shelburne to his dock. "Prepare to turn," called George. "Preparing to turn," called Theodore. "Preparing to..." called Hank, tooting his whistle at Boduk and laughing. "Toot," said George. "Who said toot? I said turn. Hank! Hank!" "But Boduk has a funny sign on him," grinned Hank. "Big Harbor Fools!" Emily shouted at Boduk. Boduk began to spin around trying to see the sign on his back, which made everyone honk and toot and ding even louder. "Will everyone please be quiet?" roared George in his biggest voice. "I am trying to work." Well, the big harbor went as silent as a seashell. Everyone went back to their jobs. "I have to find out why George doesn't like jokes," Theodore said to himself. After Shelburne had been docked, George set off for his next job, moving a small cargo ship. Theodore slowly floated up alongside George and cleared his throat. I guess you really don't like Big Harbor Fool's Day, do you, George?" Well, George just puffed up some smoke. "We have some really good jokes this year," Theodore went on. "I'm the biggest tug, right?" said George at last. "Right," replied Theodore. "And I'm the strongest, too, right?" added George. "Right," agreed Theodore. "So I have a very important, serious job. I don't want to be a Big Harbor fool. It's silly." "Well, it's fun to be silly," said Theodore. And then he added, "You'd still be George even if you were a little bit of a harbor fool, too." Well, George seemed to think about what Theodore was saying, but then he frowned and said, "Of course I would. No, it's just silly." All that day, the other tugs played Big Harbor Fool's jokes on each other and laughed and enjoyed themselves. They do look like they're having fun, George thought, as he watched the tugs. For a moment, he wished that he was laughing along with everyone, too. But then he said, "Oh, they're just being silly." George finished docking the cargo ship and headed home. "I'll sleep until this whole dumb day is over," he grumbled. Back at his dock, George covered himself with a blanket of his own smoke and went to sleep. "George isn't having any fun today," said Theodore. "I wish I knew what to do." "I think the only thing that would make George happy is if Big Harbor Fool's Day was over," said Hank. A slow smile spread over Theodore's face. "Hank," he said, "you just gave me a great idea." "I did?" said Hank. "I did." Theodore,